the men's formula runs off into some powerful herbals. If you do much study, you find Venus sativa, very powerful for men. Damiana, very powerful for men. Yarrow, very powerful for men. Sal Palmetto, that's the famous one. The one out of Brazil, Sal Palmetto is the most famous one for men. I mean, we got all the big names of the big research of the popularity, they're all in here. Processed synergistically, like only GNLD does. We have stories about the men's formula. Now, I normally like to talk about the health of the prostate. Now, the prostate runs a cycle from if you're a young man and everything is fine. If you're working with the salmon oil, if you're working with the omega-3 oils, now not the omega-3 of tree and N, the omega-3 from the plant, the phytonutrient omega-3 is the mother of all omega-3s. And you start to break it down by several factors, and you get about 200 sub-omega-3s, about 200. You get down far enough that you get into the animal, to the salmon, and you get some very specialized omega-3s called EPA or DHA. Those specially isolated omega-3s are nowhere near as valuable as the big linolenic omega-3 of tree and N. But for their purpose, they're the best. They're high-tech, and they are very important for inflammatory diseases, arthritis, knee problems, accidents, damage, headaches, migraine headaches, arthritis. Goes on and on how wonderful these omega-3 oils are. But one interesting thing about the omega-3 is, the EPA DHA, is that it's for the prostate. The prostate gland is, if it's normally moist, it's supposed to make a certain fluid. And if it can have abundant fluid, what will happen is that everything is fine. When it gets dry, the fluid, it immediately goes dry, it gets hard, and then swells. And that now can hardly be reversed. You do not want the prostate dry and swelling. The number one choice found for the prostate gland to make its fluid is salmon oil, EPA, DHA, number one choice. If you men would take 3 or 4 salmon oil every night before you go to bed, your prostate gland will be perfect, healthy. No worry about the next couple bad stages further up the line. You'll be able to do your marital responsibility for the rest of your life. And that's a big responsibility for the rest of your life. And so what you find is that there's one side effect. And that is that you do start dreaming about swimming upstream. Oh well. Sometimes they like it, sometimes they don't. Now, following along, we're going to take our steps right on up through. For now, if the prostate goes bad, if you start to move along, now you're going to have to start adding zinc. Zinc as a healer. You're going to have to start adding vitamin E. You're going to have to start adding cruciferous. There's various other factors that you need to add to as you're moving along the series. Now, to get to cruciferous, I want to talk about the whole concept of ladies first and then the men on cruciferous. But we're going to get to prostate cancer. I want every single man in this room sometime this year to go to the doctor and get your PSA, get your blood work, and find out what your PSA score. How many men here have done the PSA? Fantastic. How many men here have not done the PSA? Some of you, okay. You must go have your blood work done and see what your score is. We need to know what your score is. 0 is perfect. 1 or 2 is just fine. 4 is the line. You do not want to cross the line of 4. 4 means you have to take a procedure. The procedures can go from a female hormone they give once a month in the stomach, which works pretty well. There's one that men don't choose to do. Is very effective, and that's cutting off the testes, but that works. Then there's another one that's no, they don't choose that one. I don't know why. I don't know why. There's the freezing the prostate. Yes, and then there's the radiation pellets. They put about 35, about the size of rice, in the prostate. It gives off radiation for 5 to 7 years, and the prostate does not give off any negative PSAs for the 5 to 7 years. But if you haven't conquered your problem by then it runs on you again. And then you can run on up into full radical surgery. And so we want to know where you need, because if your score is 5 or 6, you have an enlarged prostate, you can't control your urination properly, you go potty about 4 or 5 times in the middle of the night, and you lose interest in your marital responsibility, and then if it goes 7 and 8, you have tumors. You have 9 and 10, it is a cancer. You go above 10, and it is spreading to the colon, liver, lungs, bones, and you're terminal. So you've got to know your number. I want you to find out what your number is, so we can tell where you are, how serious you need to treat your problem. So we want to get into that. We've had, I'll give you one testimony. He had started having his frequent urinations and his problems, and so he finally went and had his PSA score, and the doctor called him and says, "We got bad news, come in." So he got in, sat with the doctor. The doctor said, "Your PSA score is 13. You crossed the line of 10. He says, "We can probably buy you some time if we do full radical surgery right now." But the doctor was very popular and very busy, so he scheduled his surgery for 2 months. I don't want that popular for a doctor. I want now. I'll do it now. And so somebody found him and started him with 6 cruciferous. 6 cruciferous a day. He started 6 a day, 6 a day, 6 a day, 2 months. He went to the hospital, checked in, was rolling in the bed. They took his blood, and the doctor come running in the operating room and says, "Stop, stop." He says, "We have to cancel the surgery." He says, "Your PSA score came in at 3. And he said there was 2 reasons why the doctor had to cancel the surgery. One is he didn't need the surgery. The other one is the insurance company won't pay for the surgery unless your PSA is above 4. So he wasn't going to get paid. So he didn't want to do the surgery. He wasn't going to get paid. So he's been waiting 6 months now for his PSA score to come above 4 to qualify for the insurance. And he was considered terminal 6 months earlier. Terminal. And now he doesn't even qualify for the surgery because his PSA score won't jump above 4. And so that was just on 6 a day for 2 months. It's absolutely incredible. But let's roll back, all the way back, and bring the women into this situation and talk about what we have in phyto defense. Is the phyto defense over there in the packages? One of the packages over there. In phyto defense, we have our carotenoid complex 3, our flavonoid complex 2, our cruciferous 1. Let's spend a little time on cruciferous, because the government says you need 1 serving every day. They print it in their pyramid food chart, and they're emphasizing one of the only foods in the entire diet of humanity that the government says you need 1 serving every day, and they forgot to tell you why. They forgot to tell you how important it is. And so people don't eat it because we're talking horseradish, that's pretty strong stuff, talking Brussels sprouts and broccoli and okras, and we're into foods that are pungent, strong tasting. Most people don't eat much of them. They did a survey and they found out the average American eats about 1 serving's worth of cruciferous foods a week. So you're eating 6 servings a week short. When you find out what they're for, you all of a sudden start to see why we're having an epidemic in breast cancer, vaginal cancer, prostate cancer, because they should have told you, and we're going to tell you now, what cruciferous compounds do. They block hormone-caused cancers of the reproductive system. The reproductive cancers, breast cancer, prostate cancer, are the 2 most dreaded cancers. Cruciferous is the preventer of it. So let's go into the mechanism, share with you what the government should have told you. When you get into the cruciferous, what they find is, here's the mechanism. On each of the reproductive cell tissues, the breast, the prostate, and such, you have a receptor post like your finger sticking up. That receptor post is supposed to be covered with a cruciferous compound. That receptor post is not on other tissues. It's not on muscle, it's not on brain, it's not on liver, it's not on bone. That receptor post is only on the reproductive tissues that are associated with the reproductive hormones of estrogen, testosterone. And why it's there, well, they don't know why, it's there. And it's supposed to be coated with a cruciferous compound. If it's coated with a cruciferous compound, when the cell eats enough and gets plump, that receptor post is connected to 1 gene of that DNA chain. You remember that 3 billion pieces of information? It's connected to the 1 gene called oncogene, and it causes the cell to divide. So at one certain point with cruciferous on there, that receptor post goes dip, and the cell goes divide, and you have normal cell division, and everything is going just fine because you have the cell division. Now, if you lose the cruciferous compound on that receptor post by not eating enough cruciferous foods, If estrogen comes by and connects to it, or testosterone comes by and connects to that post freezes. And now the post won't dip. And with the post won't dip, it won't cause cell division. So the cell gets plump and full, and all of a sudden it's ready to divide, but it won't get the signal to divide, and all of a sudden it does like popcorn. It goes poof, and it pops into a cluster of 6. Cluster of 6 is soft cell tumor. It makes soft cell tumors. Now you got a cluster of 6 connected. They didn't do cell division right. You have a cluster of 6 soft cell tumor, and you have a receptor post sticking up everywhere, and they won't divide because they're frozen because you don't have cruciferous compounds on them. And then a little thread of cancer will grow into that soft cell tumor, and then you're going to fight for your life because now you're threatened to die, and things are getting serious. Now in a cruciferous, we've got 2 wonderful things. Not only does cruciferous stop the whole tumor explosion, but we have added genistin. Genistin is from the soybean, and genistin has done something that is like a miracle. Genistin is so fantastic. We're so happy about genistin. Let me tell you about genistin. Genistin, they took a little malignant tumor out of the breast. They had a thread of cancer in it. They soaked it in genistin, and it ate the thread of cancer out of the tumor, which is a wow. All by itself, that's a wow. But that isn't even the exciting thing to me. Yes, it's exciting that it ate the cancer out of the tumor, but it cleaned off the receptor posts. All those posts are sticking up everywhere. It cleaned off the receptor posts, and when it cleaned them off, they all did a dip. And here is the miracle. All of the cells in the clustered tumor all divided. And when they did normal cell division of the tumor cells, when they finished their division, they were returned back to normal breast tissue, and there was no tumor there. There was no tumor. The tumor was all gone. When all the cells did a normal 1 division, they all turned back to breast tissue, and there wasn't a tumor there anymore. This is incredible. I mean, this is absolutely fantastic. You get genistin in there, and this is what can happen. Ladies, some of you here can have something started now. If you don't catch it in time, it's going to kill you. You've got to make sure you're checking your breasts and knowing about what's happening. And if you would take 1 cruciferous, every single lady in this room needs 1 cruciferous every day the rest of your life. Every single lady needs 1 a day, every day, the rest of your life. If there's something starting in you, the cruciferous can go in there, coat those receptor posts, and genistin can go in there, eat that little thread of cancer out. It can get a hold of that little lump. It can cause each one of them to do cell division back there, and that breast doesn't have to have a lump, a scar, a dip. It can be perfect, healthy, cosmetically perfect breast. This is absolutely fantastic what this genistin can do. It's a dream come true. It's for you ladies. Every one of you need it. Aren't you glad that we have a product with genistin in it, cruciferous? Now back to the men. I'm going to tell about the men. Every single man in this room needs to take 1 cruciferous every day. And if you have problems, you can take more. I'll tell you my biggest, best story. It's about Donna and Vincent Calora. Donna and Vincent Calora in Lincoln, Nebraska. And they're in their 80s now, and they've been good friends of mine for 20-some years. They've done well with the business. They're good people. And Donna called me and said that Vincent had started going to the potty about 5 times a night. She says that he acts like he's lost interest in me, but she says she knows he's very interested. But so she said he needs to have his PSA study. So I called him up and pushed him a little bit. I said, Vincent, you've got to go get your blood work done. So finally he goes to the doctor, and 4 days later the nurse says, both you and Donna come in. We got bad news. Come in, come in. So they went in. The doctor says, Vincent, he says, your PSA score is 26. He says, you're basically terminal, but I want to buy you some time. I want to do full radical surgery. Well, Vincent decides to ask, oh, what's that? You know, full radical surgery, what's that? The doctor proceeds to tell him that we start off by cutting off the testes, cutting off all the mass, going up through, and we'll put a plastic tube, rubber tube in your bladder, tie it to your leg. You won't know when you're going, but just empty the sac by your ankle when you want to. He says that everything is gone, everything is off, and Vincent said, now this is serious, you're talking serious, but some people laugh at this point. But Vincent looked at him and says, you're not going to do that to me. He said, that's not going to happen. You're not cutting everything off and out. And so I'm going to die. Now, Vincent sat there looking at death and choosing to die. So you want to take care of this before you get to that stage in your life. You really do. So Donna takes Vincent home, starts him on 12 carotenoid, 12 flavonoid, 12 cruciferous. This is an investment. It's not free, you know. I mean, she was putting some money down him. It's 12, 12, 12, 12, 12, 12. And the doctor was expecting him to be terminal soon. 4 months later, he went back and had a PSA study, and it was down to 16. The doctor said, well, I've never seen the PSA score reversed like that, but he says, you're still terminal. And the doctor's going to finish him off. And so 12, 12, 12, 12, 12, 12, 12, 12, 12. 4 more months went by. His PSA score went down to 8. The doctor said, I have never seen this before in my life, but he says 8 is still up above the line. He says, you're still finished. Now, I was going to call them on a regular basis. I did call them on a regular basis when I get people that are serious like that. We'll call them, we'll pray and pray and pray. And I was going to hold their hand till he died. And I shouldn't do this, but I get personal with some of these people. And so he wasn't dying. And so we lost kind of track of him. We were flying around the world and just doing whatever, you know. And so we were doing our meetings in Japan, and they said, well, why don't you stop in Hawaii and do the Hawaii meetings? And I said, well, of course we'll do the Hawaii meetings. And so we stopped at Hawaii, and Vivian Chang had the doll display up there, and the pretty flower necklaces, these beautiful leis. They smell so good, looks good. I thought for sure I was going to get one. After all, I was the speaker. She didn't give me one. She knew something I didn't know. I was looking over at those flowers and smelling the flowers. In comes Donna and Vincent Calora for their 50th wedding anniversary. And they had talked with Vivian Chang earlier. And so she puts the flowers on them and has Vincent come. He's a great, big, old, tall Italian man. And he says, they were there for the 50th wedding anniversary. He says, I just got my last PSA score. And he says, the doctor said it was the lowest score he had ever seen at .08. Woo. And then as he finishes his talk, he leans down to the microphone and he goes, and everything works. Oh boy, I tell you, it's wonderful stories. Men, you need to know, get started now on the omega-3 or the salmon oil. Get started on it now. And then make sure that you're boosting yourself a little bit with some zinc, with some vitamin E, and for sure the masculine herbal. And now you're really doing a good job. And protecting yourself against being killed by that cancer in your prostate, get that cruciferous going. Science has already proven that that's what protects your receptor post and doesn't let the cell turn into a tumor. Cancer does not go healthy cell cancer. It doesn't go healthy cell malignant. It always has to go through the stage of healthy cell tumor malignant. It must go healthy cell tumor malignant. And this stops the tumor stage. The tumor stage doesn't happen, you don't get malignancy. This is absolutely fantastic. Science has shown it and proven it, and we're the company that sells it. Aren't you glad somebody sells it?